Hello and welcome to another episode of Top Deck, and once again we're returning to the case of speed duels. So we have another list coming in from the German National Championship, where they've held one of the biggest speed duel events that has ever taken place, and we have the third place list here from Greg. So he was playing Swordswoman Burn. So it's really interesting to see the way that different decks are formulated within this format, and certainly Burn variations of decks work very, very differently to the typical TCG version of a burn deck. You're not trying to kill your opponent in a single turn or 2 turns. This is the sort of classic case of slowly chipping away at your opponent's life points every turn and making sure that you deny them access to your own life points. So we have triple Swordswoman, double Sphere Karibo, one Magician of Faith, triple Mask of the Accursed. This is one of the main ways that you can deal damage, doing 500 every turn. 3 copies of Half Shut, which stops your opponent from doing so much damage to you. Triple Dust Tornado, because you do need to remove spells and traps. And double Windstorm of Etaqua, and that's it for the main deck. Although he is playing the skill card Viral Infection, which is a pretty interesting take, and I'm going to be asking him about that too, so stay tuned for that. And then in the side deck, 1 Ready for Intercepting, 1 Windstorm, and then 1 Forceful Checkpoint, and double Mishizur. So let's get the information from him. Well, we've got the rounds to kick things off. So 6 round event, and he only had a single loss in the final round, putting him into third place due to tiebreakers, losing out to the winner, I believe, in the final round. So twice against Blue Eyes, twice against Amazonas variants. Once was the control variant, and once against Warrior, taking swift victories there, and then the 1 loss against the Gravekeeper version in the sort of final, I guess, if you want to call it that. So very strong looking list. And let's get his additional information then. So he said that the event overall was really decent, considering it was the biggest speed duel event until now. You didn't have to wait too long between the rounds or for the judges to arrive, and it all went pretty smoothly, more so than expected. He decided to play this version of the deck because he used to play a lot of Duel Links, which had a very similar deck at the time, and as he opened the new displays, he was like, I'll build something similar to that Duel Links deck. And when he pulled the 3rd copy of Mask, he also didn't want to play any sort of meta-ish decks, and he just knew at that point he really likes the diversity in building decks for speed duels. And he says that overall, after some testing, he figured out some ratios and was pretty happy with the outcome, but he certainly did not expect it to perform as well as it did. So kudos really there to the piloting of this deck. He says that he did try to focus the deck such that it was a mix of stalling the battle phase, pushing damage with the Swordswoman and the Mask, and some control with the Zombina to bring back the Swordswoman or the Dust Tornado. And then after the event, he can say that the matchup against Blue Eyes is fairly easy due to the Swordswoman dealing tons of damage and crashing into the dragon. On the other hand, the matchup against the Gearfried aggro kind of deck really sucks because it's really hard to deal with, because the 3 masks are pretty much dead and the Swordswoman does not do a lot of damage in those matchups. So reconsidering the events, the Dust Tornadoes, he says, were okay. They're not decent, not disappointing, somewhere in the middle. It came in clutch in round 4 against his friend, who played some masks in the main deck as well, so it stops them from burning you so much. And since they drew both of them before Greg drew any of his, the Dust Tornadoes got rid of them, and he was able to keep playing from there. For matchups, he used to randomly shoot spell and traps. While testing, he saw that he had a really hard matchup against Harpies and their field spell, and that's why he decided to play Dust Tornadoes. But he didn't play any Harpies at the event, so he didn't have to worry about that. For the Viral Infection skill, he chose to play this because he forgot his other cards at home. He actually wanted to play something entirely different, but the first idea of Viral Infection was to just discard something like the Swordswoman, and then bring her back with the Zombina, which gives you a lot easier access. But after realizing that this was not the best idea, it was already too late and they were on their way to Bochum, and none of his friends had any spare skill cards, so he just had to run with it. After the event, there are definitely some changes that he would make. He'd change the skill to something like Destiny Draw or Millennium Eye, since they're both way more generic and useful for this kind of deck than the current one. Also, he will probably change one of the Dust Tornadoes for the 3rd copy of Windstorm. As for the side, the Mishizur was pretty okay, so he will keep that in for the moment. He didn't really side in the rest of the side deck, so he will have a closer look over the 3 remaining cards as well, which is pretty interesting because you look at, he made it into 3rd place at this big event without even using, 66.7% of his side deck was totally untouched. So that's pretty surprising. It just goes to show you how powerful the main deck was. He would say that this is the first time that anyone has really seen any of these kind of decks in Speed Duels because they're very different from what a lot of the meta players are used to, and everybody was kind of surprised at the way that he played this deck. There is a Speed Duel group on Facebook where he also published the list and some thoughts, and nobody of the 900 or so members said anything like currently working on something similar, so he supposes it's not a very popular option. However, there are some burn decks running around in Speed Duel, like the Gravekeeper burn, who also topped the event, piloted by Yuri, but none of them is really similar to Greg's, as of what he's seen so far. So he would like to give shoutouts to 2 guys in particular. Ines Gutik, a very close friend of his, with him he always discusses the Speed Duel meta, and as to what could be coming up next, how to counter it, etc. And they're working their way towards building newer decks together and always getting feedback from each other about how to put new contraptions together, really. And the second would be Daniel Clement, who is also a really good friend of his, and who is the main reason that the Speed Duel community in Luxembourg is growing so much. He always tries to bring new players and is also very capable of giving good tech choices. As for the rest, he would like to shout out his sponsor, Jill Schroeder, who also sponsors him in the TCG, Deckelsmook on Card Market, and then the whole Yu-Gi-Oh! And Speed Duel community of Luxembourg, and finally, Anthony Lopez, the Belgian winner, Belgian National Championship winner this year, or else he will cry if he doesn't get shouted out by Greg. So thanks very much, Greg, for coming on, sharing your list, your matchups, and your insights. It's really interesting to see the way that you're building these decks, based on your past experience with Duel Links, and that you didn't need to even bring a very impactful skill card, or even touch most of your side deck for this event, and yet still you were able to perform extremely well. So thanks very much for coming on, and good luck to you in the future.